Hi, I'm Yuretsi, and for 10 years, I built my family's business from the ground up every late night, every dollar we didn't have, every line of code. But last fall, at my father's birthday party, my sister stood on stage and called me worthless. What hurt more wasn't the word. It was the fact that he nodded. No one stopped her. Not my dad, not my mother, not the board I helped assemble. They handed her my company like I was just a placeholder, someone to erase. But the next morning, I did something no one expected. How did I go from being invisible in my own legacy to holding everything that could bury them? Would you have stayed silent or burned it all down? I had been to 100 events in my life where I didn't want to be. But this one, the 60th birthday celebration for my father, was the first where I actually feared walking in. Not because of the people, the speeches, or the spotlight, but because of what I knew would be missing, and who would pretend not to notice. The Four Seasons Ballroom in downtown Austin looked like a wedding venue trying too hard. Strings of soft golden lights draped from the ceiling. A live quartet in the corner played gentle jazz. People buzzed like champagne flutes, and there I stood, in a simple navy dress, clutching a small, carefully wrapped gift I had debated leaving in the car 5 times before stepping through the door. No one saw me at first, or if they did, they pretended not to. My sister, Callista, stood near the stage in a satin ivory gown, the kind of dress that photographs well and says, "This is my moment," without her having to say it out loud. She was magnetic, she always had been. The guests orbited her as though she were the actual reason they'd come. Not my father, not the business he spent decades building. Just her. I slipped toward the side of the room and hovered by a tall table, scanning for a familiar face, someone who'd actually worked with me over the last 10 years. I caught eyes with someone from finance, someone I'd hired. He smiled politely, then turned away. Moments later, someone brushed past me and muttered, "Excuse me, can you grab another round of glasses from catering?" I didn't respond. I didn't need to. That was the point. I had become invisible, even when wearing heels. The stage lights flickered slightly as Callista stepped up to the mic, and I knew immediately, this wasn't about Dad. This was about her, about what she was going to claim. But first, I had my gift. One last attempt, however naive, to connect with the man who once taught me to solder motherboards in the garage before dinner. I approached Dad during a brief lull between speeches and passed him the wrapped box. "Happy birthday," I said softly. He smiled politely. Not warmly. Then Callista swooped in. "Oh, don't worry, Daddy," she said, her voice like honey over steel. "I've already taken care of the tribute." She handed him a golden plaque, engraved with her name, and a title she'd never earned. Callista Vane Visionary Co-Founder. His smile grew wider as he held it up to the flashing cameras. "My gift?" He placed it on a side table without opening it. Always so sentimental, he chuckled. "That's Yuretsi." No one laughed, but no one disagreed either. I stepped back into the crowd as Callista reclaimed the mic. The room silenced itself around her. She looked stunning, poised, terrifying. She didn't glance at me once. "I want to thank you all for being here tonight," she began. "This isn't just a celebration of our father, it's a celebration of legacy, of leadership, of knowing when it's time to evolve." My stomach twisted. "We've reached a pivotal point at Blythe Solutions," she continued, "and after careful discussion with our advisory board and stakeholders, we've decided the company needs a single, unified direction. Moving forward, I will be assuming full leadership as CEO. People clapped some hesitantly, others with forced enthusiasm. My ears rang. "Of course," she added, almost sweetly. "We wouldn't be here without the early help of our technical team." My sister Yuretsi, in particular, helped establish the foundation of our original software tools, and we'll always be grateful for that. I couldn't breathe. "However," she said, her voice sharpening, "where we're going requires vision, not just maintenance. And frankly, Yuretsi has always been more suited for systems behind the scenes. We love her, But it's time for her to step aside and allow the company to meet its full potential. I looked at Dad. He was nodding. Mom sat still, hands clasped in her lap, staring down at her plate. Then it hit me. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't a slip of ego. This was planned, executed. Callista had called me worthless without saying the word. But everyone in the room heard it. So I stood. I walked across the ballroom quiet, deliberate, heels echoing louder than any words I could have screamed. I reached the side table, picked up the unopened gift, and placed it in front of Dad. He didn't look at me. "Happy birthday," I said. My voice didn't shake. And then I left. I didn't cry in the elevator. I didn't cry in the parking garage. I drove home in silence, my knuckles white against the steering wheel. That night, I didn't just walk away from a party. I walked away from the idea that being good would ever be good enough. I didn't go straight home after that night. I drove for almost an hour, with no particular direction, just circling the edges of Austin, until the skyline felt foreign enough to slow my breath. Eventually, I parked behind the empty office building, where the familiar My logo still glowed in pale blue against the glass. I sat there, staring up at it, wondering what parts of me still lived behind those walls. 2 days later, I returned as if nothing had happened. The lobby was brighter than I remembered. Someone had updated the mural along the back wall. The old timeline of milestones had been replaced with an oversized image of Callista, arms folded, eyes locked on the horizon like some corporate messiah. Beneath her face were the words, "Founded by visionary leader, Callista Vane." My name wasn't there. I paused in front of the display, not long enough to be noticed, just long enough to confirm I hadn't imagined it. The receptionist glanced up and gave me a polite, unsure smile. I nodded back, walked past her, and kept moving. I didn't need a badge anymore. Everyone still knew who I was. Or at least, they used to. Inside the conference area, the team was gathering for a quarterly milestone event. Balloons, catering trays, a laminated schedule taped to the door with tiny gold stars printed along the border. I scanned the list. The final presenter slot read, Callista Vane CEO Address. Again, not my name. A junior associate spotted me and waved. "Oh, hey! We weren't sure you'd be back in Austin this week." "I never left," I said evenly. He blinked, clearly confused, then handed me a name tag from the check-in table. I didn't look down at first. I already felt the mistake. M. Blith Logistics. Not even my name. And apparently, I now worked in supply chain. He pointed toward the back of the room where they had reserved seating. I found my place next to a folding table lined with bottled water, 2 feet from the catering entrance. I could smell warm garlic bread from behind the curtains. I could hear someone whisper, "Is she here to speak?" Someone else answered, "No, she's just visiting." Thought she stepped down. The plastic chair wobbled when I sat down. A tray of used glasses clinked loudly as a server passed me by. No one looked twice. The presentation rolled on. Callista entered from the side hall in a fitted blue suit, heels sharp against the hardwood. She took the stage without missing a beat, flashing that signature smile to the audience like she'd trained for it in front of a mirror for months, which, knowing her, she probably had. "Let's talk about growth," she began. "About the future we're building together." I tuned out the rest. Her voice was smooth, confident, filled with phrases like scaling strategy and cultural reinvention, words I used to write in the actual pitch decks, back when people still asked me to contribute. After the applause and group photo, I ducked away to avoid the crowd. On my way out, I passed by the atrium's new legacy wall. Photos from the last decade were mounted in sleek black frames, each one carefully captioned. I leaned in. Product launches, tech fairs, board dinners. A few I had personally organized. In all of them, Callista was front and center. And 2 was there too, in 1 or 2 shots. But barely. In one image, I stood just outside the main cluster, half turned, half cut off. In another, My face was blurred by motion, or bad focus, or maybe just intention. For a moment, I stood perfectly still. I wasn't hurt in the way I expected. Not like that night at the party. This was quieter. A new kind of grief that didn't roar, it settled. Like dust on furniture you forgot you owned. Upstairs, someone called my name, but not really. Yaretsi! Oh, hey, I thought you were consulting remotely now. Not quite, I replied. Well, good to see you, she smiled thinly, then turned back to her group. They kept walking. I stayed behind. According to the company newsletter, I was stepping back for personal clarity. I wondered how many people believed it. I wondered how many cared. I rode the elevator down with a group of interns. They didn't say a word. Probably didn't recognize me. Why should they? When the doors opened, I saw Callista standing with two of the executives near the front desk. They were laughing at something she'd said, her hand resting confidently on the glass counter. I didn't walk toward them. I turned left, toward the stairs, and pushed the door open without a glance behind me. My heels clicked down the concrete steps faster than the elevator ever moved. I reached the bottom, breath steady. No eyes on me, no applause, no stage. But I had never needed any of that. By the following Monday, my name had been erased from enough places to make me wonder if it had ever belonged there. I stopped attending meetings I was no longer invited to. I didn't confront anyone. I didn't correct the whispered narratives. I just started looking. At first, I approached it like a puzzle. Something technical, detached. If they'd buried me professionally, I needed to understand where the dirt had been piled, who had held the shovel, and when the first handful landed. My home office was quieter than usual that morning, the kind of quiet where the hum of the fridge sounds like it's whispering. I opened my laptop, launched the company archives, and began cross-referencing files. Patent filings, licensing agreements, entity registrations, things I had once signed myself. That's when I found it. Chentech Holdings, LLC. I stared at the name for a long time. It meant nothing to me until I saw the officer listed. Callista Vane, a separate legal entity created 6 months ago. Now the registered owner of the license for the very software that built Blythe Solutions' client base. My code. My architecture. The same platform I had spent 3 years perfecting and protecting. My fingers hovered over the mouse as I dug deeper. It wasn't just the license. It was everything. Callista had transferred all major software IP to Chentech. Quietly. Efficiently. Then I saw the document. The transfer form, with a signature block signed by Dorian Brandt, my father. Dated 3 years ago. 3 years ago, I was in San Diego, presenting at a small tech accelerator. I remembered calling him that day, asking if he could review the new partner agreement. He'd told me, just send it to Callista. She's better at reading the fine print. I didn't sleep that night, not from sadness but from clarity. The next morning, I returned to the building. No reason, no meeting, just something I needed to confirm. The Innovation Hall had been completely redesigned. Light wood paneling, glass displays. The whole thing was polished like a museum. Photos of every milestone hung along the wall, organized by year. Product launches, team offsites, PR awards, everything except truth. I found one photo from our 2017 beta testing image I remembered vividly. It had been taken the night we hit our first 1,000 user milestone. I stood next to Callista, holding a printed dashboard of our growth metrics. But in this version, I wasn't beside her. I was in the far corner, partially cropped, half-turning, mid-blink. The caption beneath read, Callista Vane, leading the future. The hallway was empty. I let my hand rest against the frame. Just for a second. Walking back to my car, I heard 2 employees chatting as they passed. Did you hear she's still working here? One asked. No way! I thought she was off doing consulting or something, the other replied. They didn't even lower their voices. Later that night, I sat on the floor of my living room, laptop propped against the couch, and started creating a new folder. Backstop. Not dramatic, just methodical. The first document I saved was the license transfer. Then I added the image from Innovation Hall, which I snapped with my phone before leaving. A few archived board memos followed, every one where my name had been reduced to Yaretsi B or removed altogether. Then I started remembering words phrases I hadn't questioned at the time. Callista. You build the tech, it'll build the legacy. Dorian. People don't remember who wrote the code. They remember who makes the headlines. A board member during a networking event. We assumed you'd stepped away years ago, to be honest. We haven't seen you on stage in forever. Each one fit together now, like pieces of a story I hadn't realized was being told without me. I didn't cry. That wasn't the emotion left. It was something quieter. A knowing. I closed my laptop and stared at the dark screen for a while. My reflection stared back, still here, still standing, still me. They wanted a legacy without the labor, a spotlight without the structure. But I had the documents, the trail, the receipts. They erased me in silence. I would rebuild my voice loud enough for a courtroom to hear. I didn't want to go. That should have been enough. But when my mother calls and says, "We're all getting together Sunday for dinner. Just family. It's time," there's a kind of gravity in her voice that pulls you in even when your whole body leans the other way. By the time I pulled into the circular driveway, dusk had already softened the edges of the house. Warm light spilled through the front windows, like everything inside was still normal, like we hadn't shattered something permanent the week before. I sat in the car longer than I needed to, hands still on the steering wheel, breathing through the kind of tightness that has nothing to do with fear and everything to do with knowing exactly what's waiting inside. The front door opened before I knocked. Mom smiled faintly and gave me a hug that didn't linger. "Your father's setting the table," she said. "Callista brought wine." Of course she did. Dinner smelled like old tradition roasted chicken, rosemary, soft rolls warming in the oven. A meal that tried too hard to convince everyone that we were still a family. We sat down without fanfare. Mom passed dishes like a hostess on autopilot. Callista smiled too wide and talked too much. Dad nodded a lot, said little. Then came the story. "You remember those early chaotic days?" Callista began, stabbing a green bean like it owed her money. "I mean, Yaretsi was still working part-time at that cafe near the university while I was holding the fort with Dad. Wild times." She laughed, full-throated. Mom gave a small chuckle. Dad smirked. I didn't laugh. I looked across the table and locked eyes with my mother. Just for a second. She looked down at her plate. That second broke something I hadn't realized was still whole. Because that was the moment she could have said, "That's not true." The moment she could have reminded Callista who built the original prototype, who worked night shifts fixing server bugs, who kept this family afloat while Dad was hospitalized the winter of 2016. But she didn't. She picked up her fork. She sliced her chicken. She chewed. That silence was louder than anything Callista could have said. Later, after the dishes were cleared and polite goodbyes had been exchanged, I sat in my car outside my apartment, phone buzzing with a message from Greg, an old colleague from engineering. "Thought you should see this." "Sorry." Attached was a screenshot. A Slack message from 2:07 a.m. during a system crash 2 months ago. "Let Yaretsi play with the code. It keeps her busy while we handle the real stuff. Callista V." I stared at the words for a long time. Not because I was shocked, but because I wasn't. She hadn't sent it to me. She never thought she'd need to explain it. That's the thing about people like Callista. They don't whisper when they're sure no one's listening. They talk freely, boldly, because they believe no one will ever hold them accountable. And for a long time, they're usually right. I put the phone down and closed my eyes. The message was cruel, sure, but it didn't sting like the silence at the dinner table had, because that kind of betrayal, the kind that hides behind polite smiles and soft table lighting, that's the one that lingers. You don't need enemies when your silence does the same work. I found myself replaying the moment again. The look Mom gave me, soft, hesitant, not quite shameful, but not protective either. She didn't pick a side, she just bowed out. And somehow, that hurt worse than being erased. By midnight, I was done feeling sorry. I opened the voice memo app on my phone and hit record. My voice was steady, quiet, like steel cooling after heat. Callista, this ends soon. You've built your power by talking over me, by pretending I wasn't in the room. But I was. And Eam's still here. So you might want to choose your next moves carefully. Because Eam done being quiet. I didn't send it right away. I saved it, let it sit. Truth doesn't always need to shout. Sometimes it just needs to wait until the whole room can hear it. When she lowered her eyes, I raised my voice, finally. Monday morning came without asking if I was ready. I dressed with more intention than usual, crisp slacks, a blazer that didn't beg attention but dared someone to overlook me. I parked at the far end of the lot, walked the long path to the glass doors of Blythe Solutions, and held my breath only once, just before I stepped into the building. Inside the executive boardroom, the lights were bright, the air was cold, and the seats were mostly filled. I wasn't late. I wasn't early either. The exact kind of arrival that gave them the fewest reasons to speak my name at all. My name was printed on the meeting agenda. I saw it clearly, Erasure Blythe, listed fourth, with a vague bullet point beneath it. Ongoing systems support update. But when the meeting started, Callista breezed right past that item. "Let's keep this efficient," she said, flipping to the second page. "We're aligned, and time is tight." No one looked my way. I sat in silence for the first 10 minutes, just long enough for them to assume I would stay that way. Then Callista projected a document onto the screen aboard resolution labeled Unanimous Leadership Realignment Agreement. And my name was there. As a signature. A fake one. She read from the summary. As previously agreed upon and confirmed by all senior partners, including Erasure, this reorganization. Where did you get my approval? I cut in. Her pause was only half a second, but I caught it. Must have been a clerical oversight, she said, tone breezy. These things happen. We'll have legal clean it up after. She smiled. Everyone smiled with her. That's how silence works. It spreads like wildfire in a room full of cowards. I closed my folder, not because I was finished, but because I had seen enough. They thought this was new. But this had happened before. 3 months earlier, I was scheduled to deliver a keynote at our product launch in Dallas. 15 minutes before I was set to speak, the mic stopped working. They rushed to fix it, then handed it to Callista. "We need someone ready to go," they said. "Let her cover it." I did. The same thing happened the next month at a VC networking event. "Technical issue," they said again. Funny how that only ever applied to me. It wasn't a malfunction. It was orchestration. I wasn't being ignored. I was being muted. Back in my apartment that evening, I made tea I didn't drink and sat on the edge of my sofa for a long time. No TV, no noise. Just me, a notebook, and my laptop open to a blank audio file. I hit record. My voice was steady. I didn't rush, didn't rage. I outlined everything. The unauthorized use of my name in company documents. The pattern of erasure from meetings, from presentations, from our own narrative. The manipulated story that they had constructed and sold to staff, media, and our own board. Then I said this. "You've built your power by silencing me. Let's see how loud silence gets in court." I stopped the recording, saved it, transcribed it, filed it inside a new folder labeled Intent. I didn't send it right away, not because I was uncertain, but because timing is everything, and silence, when broken, should land like thunder, not a whisper. At 11:42 p.m., I opened my email. I attached the voice memo and hit send. To Callista. No one else. I didn't expect a response. Didn't wait for one either. Some warnings aren't meant to spark fear. They're meant to mark the moment something shifts. That voice memo wasn't just for her, it was a timestamp for what's coming. Tuesday began the same way Monday ended, quiet, gray, and heavy. I woke early, didn't eat. Just made coffee I barely touched, and sat in my home office, scrolling through emails I hadn't asked to receive. At 8:13 a.m., one caught my eye. Tech Women magazine, From Vision to Victory, How Callista Vane Built a $70 million Tech Empire. I clicked. The article began with a glossy photo of Callista, standing in front of our headquarters like it was her monument. The piece praised her leadership, her foresight, her transformation of a fledgling family venture into a tech powerhouse. No mention of me. Not even once. Halfway through the article, there was a quote from Dorian. "She's always had the vision to lead," it read. She knew where the market was heading before any of us did. My mouth went dry. I didn't reread it. I didn't need to. He had spoken the way cowards do through someone else, to the world, never to me. I closed the browser. For the first time in months, I felt still. Not hurt. Not even angry. Just precise. I logged into the internal dashboard to begin drafting a client readiness audit. Something we were supposed to prep quarterly. A task only I ever cared about. Access denied. Another try. Same result. I opened the admin panel. My profile had been downgraded observer status. Read-only access. No permissions. No ability to export, edit, or lead any project. An automated message blinked across the screen. Your permissions have been restricted. Contact system administrator for support. I checked the admin list. There was one name. Callista Vane. That was the moment the breath left my lungs in one slow, deliberate exhale. Not because I was surprised, but because even now, part of me still thought there were limits they wouldn't cross. I was wrong. Just after noon, I drove back to headquarters. Not to confront anyone. Not yet. I told the front desk I needed to collect some of my belongings from the third-floor archive. The receptionist hesitated. "We were told you're non-operational now. Do you want me to check with HR?" I smiled. "I won't be long." No one stopped me. In the elevator, I kept my eyes on the floor numbers. I didn't want to see the faces I might recognize, didn't want to watch them look away. On my way out, I stopped by the mailroom. The clerk behind the counter looked up, startled. Ms. Blythe?" "That's me." He turned, sifted through a stack, then pulled out a package wrapped in matte black paper. This was stuck in the unclaimed bin. "Been here a while. I think someone forgot it after the event." I knew exactly what it was. The gift I'd brought for Dorian. The one I'd left on the table during his birthday party. Still sealed, still untouched. I nodded, took it without a word, and walked out of the building. Outside, the sun had finally broken through the clouds. It should have felt like warmth, but all it did was cast longer shadows. I didn't go home right away. I parked in an empty grocery lot, stared at the box in the passenger seat, and let the silence stretch until the weight of it settled somewhere in my ribs. That gift, like everything I had offered to them, had never been opened, never acknowledged. They hadn't just rejected me. They hadn't even noticed. By early evening, I was back home. I placed the package on my kitchen counter, didn't unwrap it, didn't even glance at the tag. Then I opened my laptop, drafted an email to 3 of our top clients people who had worked with me, not just with the brand, people who would notice if I was suddenly gone. Attached one small PDF file, proof of the license registration, the one in my name. The one they didn't know had expired. Opened the folder I'd labeled Backstop, moved 3 new files into it, created a subfolder titled Contingency. I wasn't planning a war. I was writing the playbook for when they launched one, and for the first time in a long while, I felt something close to peace. If they shut the door, I'll build a different kind of door, and they'll hear me knock. By 8:47 a.m., I was already parked. I didn't sit in the car to collect myself. I didn't check my makeup in the mirror. I just stepped out, walked through the front doors, and nodded politely at the receptionist who couldn't quite hide the uncertainty in her eyes. I wasn't early. I was exactly on time. The boardroom was occupied. Callista sat at the head of the table, her posture perfect, voice steady, talking about optimization and pivot moments. Dorian sat beside her, flipping through a printed handout, pretending to understand the charts. The board members had their mugs, their notes, their polished indifference. I walked in without a word, rolled my tablet out from its case, and connected to the projector screen. Callista paused mid-sentence, and for a moment, the room tilted. "I assume we're adding to the agenda?" she asked, eyebrows lifted. I didn't answer her. The screen flickered on. Subject line: clarification regarding ownership and leadership structure. Earlier this morning, I sent this email to all major clients, internal leads, and legal contacts associated with Blythe Solutions. The inbox feed appeared on screen. More than 24 responses already. A reply from Northern Data Group: "We're pausing all renewals until this is clarified." Another from a European partner: "Our contract is contingent on Yaretsi Blythe's continued leadership. Please advise." And a quiet note from a lead engineer: "I stand with Yaretsi. If she goes, I go." I let the silence fill the room like water. No one moved, not even Callista. "I wasn't included in the decision to reassign leadership," I continued. "I wasn't consulted about the meeting where I supposedly signed off on it." That signature was forged. Before anyone could pivot, the door opened again. Inez Rourke stepped inside, heels soft but sure on the tile, holding a flash drive. She didn't look at Callista. She looked at me. "May I?" she asked. I nodded. She plugged it into the console. The screen changed. A screen recording began Callista's desktop. A document opened. A board memo with my name typed beneath a fake signature. Next, a Slack thread where Callista instructed the assistant to handle the approval line before Yaretsi sees it. Finally, a spreadsheet showing manual access changes, confirming that I had been removed from multiple admin controls under her instruction. "That's enough," I said, and Inez stepped back. No one spoke. Then I opened one more file. It was the original incorporation agreement dated, notarized, signed, showing that I owned 25% of the company at launch. Next, a follow-up transfer from 3 years ago. Dorian transferring 26% additional shares to Quietly during a period of expansion, in exchange for personal investment capital ID contributed. My name wasn't just on the license. I was the majority shareholder. And the license? It had expired at 6 a.m. this morning. I hadn't renewed it. "As of now," I said, "Blythe Solutions does not own legal rights to the software it's built upon. The clients know this. The press will soon. But you have a choice." I turned to Dorian first. "You can both step down. Retain your shares quietly. Take a dividend, collect your reputation, and walk away." Then to Callista: "Or I take my code, my clients, and my team. And this company folds before lunch." No one moved. Dorian stared at the table. Callista's eyes didn't blink, but I could see her jaw twitch. "I don't want control," I said, softer now. "But I'm not going to let you rewrite me out of my own history." The room held its breath. Then Dorian shifted his weight and pushed his chair back with a slow scrape. "I'll have legal draft the paperwork," he said. I didn't nod. I didn't thank him. I closed my tablet, packed it away, and walked out. Outside the boardroom, the hallway felt warmer, lighter. Inez followed me out. "You okay?" she asked. "Not yet," I said, "but I will be." I didn't want control, but I wasn't going to leave my name behind anymore. I arrived at the office early that Thursday, not because I needed to, but because I wanted to sit in the quiet before the phone started ringing, before people would look at me differently, and before the walls themselves remembered who they used to belong to. My name was on the door now. I ran my hand along the edge of the desk, still polished, still sterile, but it felt different. Not heavier, not lighter, just mine. That was enough. The first thing I did was pull down the photo of Callista shaking hands with a tech investor in front of our logo. I didn't toss it. I didn't frame it either. I just slid it into a drawer labeled Archived. As I sifted through old contracts and flagged licensing renewals, a knock came at the door. Alden Knox stepped in, his briefcase in hand, face unreadable as always. "I won't take much of your time," he said. He reached into his bag and pulled out a sealed envelope. My name, handwritten. Dorian's handwriting. I hadn't seen it in years. Slanted, almost too neat, like he always wanted to make sure it was legible, even when his message wasn't. "This came to me 5 years ago," Alden said. "Your father asked me to hold it. Told me to deliver it only if things ever got what he called too far. I believe this qualifies." I opened it. The letter inside was dated 5 years earlier. A short paragraph, not even signed formally. "No, love, Dad." Just this: "If you're reading this, I must have forgotten to say it when it mattered. You built the foundation. You kept us afloat when no one else saw the gaps. You were never just the technical one. You were the reason. I'm sorry." I folded it slowly, then looked up. "Thank you," I said. Alden gave a small nod. "There's more than one kind of acknowledgement, Yuretsi. Some come late, but they come." He left without another word. Later that day, I got a ping from Inez. The message was short. "Check this listing. Callista's assistant is the seller ID." Attached was a link to an auction site: luxury estate watches, rare editions, collector's items. And there it was. The exact watch Dorian had given me for my graduation. The one with the custom engraving on the back. Build it better. The one that had gone missing the same year Callista renovated the family storage room and offered to handle the clutter. I didn't call her. I didn't accuse anyone. I placed a private bid, bought it back under an alias, and had it shipped to my office. No confrontation, no vengeance, just return. That evening, just after the lights dimmed outside, Evelyn showed up at the lobby. No warning, no text. Just her silhouette standing beneath the security light, holding a plain white box. I opened the door for her. "I won't stay," she said. "I just wanted to bring you something." It was the gift, the one I had left for Dorian, wrapped in matte black paper, still sealed. "I found it in the back of the hall closet," she said, eyes misty but voice even. "It didn't feel right throwing it out." I took it in both hands. "Thank you." We didn't sit, but we stood there for a long moment in silence. "I wasn't strong," she finally said, "but I was watching, and I'm proud. It wasn't forgiveness, it wasn't a repair, but it was enough for the moment." After she left, I sat alone in my office, the light from the parking lot casting thin shadows across my desk. I opened the drawer, took out the watch, laid it beside the unopened gift. Then I pulled out a blank note card and wrote, "I got your message. I built it better, but I didn't send it." I tucked it beneath the watch and closed the drawer. Some truths don't need an audience. Some victories don't need noise. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do isn't scream. It's outlast. I kept the letter, the watch, and the silence. Each of them taught me something he never did. The ballroom in Dallas didn't shimmer like the one where everything began. There were no crystal chandeliers, no sweeping staircases, no floral archways for photos. And yet, standing there, I felt something I never did back then. Ownership. Not just of the event, but of myself. The audience wasn't full of legacy partners or power brokers trying to assess my net worth with a glance. These were real people builders, innovators, young women with notebooks in hand, leaning forward like what I might say actually mattered. "Founder and CEO of Blythe Solutions," the announcer stated clearly, without hesitation or parenthetical explanations. No one had to ask, "Wait, isn't her sister the one who—" Though someone in the back did whisper, "Isn't she the one whose sister tried to push her out?" I heard it. And for once, I didn't brace myself. I didn't correct them either. I didn't need to. I walked to the podium and spoke for 20 minutes. No slides, no dramatic video. Just my voice stronger now. Not because it was louder, but because it was finally mine. I spoke about resilience, about systems designed to erase, about what it means to reclaim your place not by kicking down the door, but by building your own. When I returned to my office that night, the inbox was fuller than usual. Notes from attendees, an invitation to keynote another summit. But one email stood out: a press release forwarded by Inez. It was from a VC firm in California. The subject line read, "Callista Rowan joins as strategic advisor. Not founder, not CEO, not visionary, just strategic advisor. Inez had scribbled at the bottom, "She's rewriting again, but this time, the spotlight's a lot smaller." I didn't respond. I didn't forward it. I didn't rage. I archived it. A few weeks later, Thanksgiving crept in like it always did, slower now that the rush of everything had settled. Evelyn reached out, offering to host. I told her yes, but only under one condition: no speeches, no awkward group toasts, no public apologies with a fork in one hand and guilt in the other. Just dinner. Just family, or at least the version of it that remained. Dorian sat at the head of the table, same as always, but there was something dimmed in him. He wasn't commanding the room anymore. He didn't dominate the conversation. He watched, observed, and when his eyes met mine across the table during dessert, he didn't look away. There was no smile, no tearful proud of you, just stillness. And on the wall behind him hung a photo I hadn't seen before. A black and white candid of the founding team, captured early on. The same image Callista once cropped me out of for the company site. But now, there I was, in the center, standing tall, caught mid-laugh, framed, hung in their dining room like a silent revision of the story they once told without me. I didn't bring it up. I didn't need to. A few days later, a small brown package arrived at my office. No return address. Just my name, handwritten. I knew Evelyn's script immediately, those careful, looping letters that always made even a grocery list feel like a letter from someone who once loved you. Inside was a brass key. Familiar. Heavy. Wrapped in tissue. And beneath it, a single folded note. "You were always there. I'm sorry I wasn't." I didn't cry. I didn't text her. I just sat there for a long time, holding the weight of that key. The cabin in Colorado. The one they used to go to every winter without me. The one they once joked I was too busy chasing status to care about. No explanations, no declarations, just an open door. That night, I went home early, poured a glass of wine, lit one candle, opened the drawer I had avoided for over a year, the one that held the things I hadn't known how to categorize. The watch Dorian gave me on my first promotion. The letter I never sent to Callista. The unopened gift with no tag, left on my doorstep the night I moved out. I placed them all gently into a wooden box, labeled it in black ink, "History, not luggage," because I was done carrying what didn't belong to me. Then I sat back and let the silence fill the space around me. Not the suffocating kind I used to dread, but the kind that cradles truth. The kind that holds you upright when words would only knock you down again. Sometimes, healing doesn't arrive in apologies or epilogues. It shows up in a name finally spoken with respect, a chair finally pulled out for you, a photo uncropped, a story told right. What they tried to bury in their revision became the root of my restoration. You don't have to burn bridges to leave behind what harmed you. Sometimes, you simply stop walking back across them, and that's enough.